Greeks had only wooden boats for island trading. Today they have the biggest merchant navy in the world. In the 1890s, they began to buy rusty old British tramp steamers. They crewed them with sons and nephews, worked them hard, and made money. Soon, tiny island communities spawned dozens of millionaires. Onassis was obsessed with the desire to be a ship owner.
Onassis was a practical man, and he knew that if he wanted to be in the shipping business, he had to learn. And he was not ashamed of learning. Up until his death, he wanted to learn.
London was and is the most important shipping centre in the world. For hundreds of years, much of the city's wealth has come from brokering, chartering, shipping, and shipping insurance. Onassis had already made enough money to maintain a permanent suite at the Savoy. But now he was about to start all over again. He worked grueling hours in a small backroom shipping office. He learned how to risk his money in a risky business, one where almost daily freight rates soar and plunge on the trading floor of the Baltic Exchange.
I'm a Greek ship owner, and my father was a Greek ship owner. And you have to know, it's just like poker, when to get out and when to go in. And, you know, shipping is a tremendously gambling thing. It's timing. You cannot be afraid to lose. If you're afraid to lose, you can't make money because the ship gets old.
Onassis was ambitious and never lacked nerve.
Funny enough, all these ship owners are aggressive like that. But not too aggressive, because the too aggressive people make one or two good decisions and then they go broke.
In the years of depression, he was told that there were a couple of ships laid up and he could buy them for a song at the time. Of course, nobody knew what he was going to do with the ships. And I suspect that he did not know either. So he raised his money, he bought the ships.
10 Canadian cargo ships were going cheap. Onassis bargained hard, paid cash, and bought 6 with his own money. With world shipping in the doldrums, he was taking a serious risk. But he had timed it right. The world depression eased, and before long he was getting a handsome return on his investment. The proud young shipowner could well afford a state cabin on the liner Augustus, bound from Buenos Aires to Genoa. On board, he noticed an attractive older woman. She was a sophisticated divorcee called Ingeborg Dedichen. Before long, a shipboard romance blossomed. In all his serious love affairs, Onassis was attracted to strong, independent women. Throughout the 30s, he and Inge traveled everywhere together. The wealthy daughter of a Scandinavian shipping magnate, she opened doors for him. In 1938, a Swedish shipyard launched the Aristotle. She was the first ship Onassis had built.
Well, Onassis was a man who could foresee a lot of things, and he was always looking ahead of his times. He was the first one who started building larger and larger tankers because he believed that the larger the tanker is, the more economical it is.
Ariston means best in Greek. At 15,000 tons, she was also the biggest tanker afloat. Onassis, who saw that oil was the fuel of the future, ordered 2 more like her. The Ariston's maiden voyage was cause for celebration. A party of friends joined the ship. She was the first tanker to have a swimming pool. But the Second World War caught Onassis by surprise. In April 1940, an invasion fleet sailed from Germany. the Nazi war machine rolled over Denmark and Norway. Anxious to avoid the same fate, Sweden declared itself neutral and impounded the ships of combatant nations. Onassis's 3 new ships were moored in Swedish docks for the rest of the war. Onassis may not have had a good war, but he had a good time. In Hollywood and New York, he mixed pleasure with business. He relaxed with Stavros Niarchos, a fellow self-made Greek millionaire, who shared his love of ships and women. Onassis said, "I approach every woman as a potential mistress."
If you walked into a room and you didn't know who he was, you'd still pay attention to him. And I noticed that, because a lot of people look like Onassis in Greece. Half the population looks like Onassis. He was short, ugly, but he had far more presence than a lot of far better looking men than I've met. He wasn't awed by women, and of course he was extremely generous. And the moment a woman would express any desire, he'd say, "Well, you can have it," like that. So it was easy, and I mean, he got, after all, some pretty famous women. And he knew how to handle them very well, and flatter them. He was a great flatterer.
Onassis did not want a movie star for a wife, but a Greek girl from a good family. Tina and Eugenie Livanos were the daughters of a great shipping magnate and highly marriageable.
I don't say that he married Tina because she was a girl of a rich family. But it's very interesting to notice that the marriage of 2 fortunes makes a bigger fortune.
He was 40 when he married Tina. By way of a dowry, his father-in-law gave him a ship. But Onassis had earned his place at the top table. Despite German U-boats, he made money in the war. A ship chartered to the Allies earned $250,000 a year. 450 Greek merchant ships took part in the war. 360 were sunk. Only Onassis never lost a ship or a sailor. But would his luck hold when the war was over?
It wasn't as easy to make money after World War II as people suppose. The reason why a lot of people made money was because they took tremendous chances, because they knew they were visionaries. They knew that America had to rebuild the world. How do you rebuild the world? Not by train, but by ship.
At the end of the war, non-US citizens were forbidden to buy American Liberty ships. But with a clever lawyer and a dummy corporation, Onassis snapped up 16 Liberty ships and 4 surplus tankers. In the winter fuel crisis of 1947, his ready-made fleet made big money.
Well, of course, Onassis was not a saint. Onassis would look into the deals, find out whether there are loopholes, take his chances and go ahead. But he would never violate the law. He would be at the brink of the law. He will perform the law in his own way.
In the shipyards of post-war Germany, Onassis saw his chance for a bigger and even bolder gamble.
Well, then he visited Germany and he saw that it was wiped out. Nothing was there, and he asked them whether they could build for him some ships, in particular tankers. And they said that they cannot because they lacked finances. But if they had a contract for about 30 ships, then they would go to the banks and get the money and build the yard and then build the ships. And this is exactly what he did. And he signed a contract for 30, if I remember correctly, 30 ships, 30 tankers.
He started building tankers, which were called in those days monster tankers, which were about 46,000 tons, which today is a handy size.
Festtag im Hamburger Hafen. 50.000 Menschen kamen zu den Howaldswerken und sahen den Stapellauf des größten Tankers der Welt, der Tina Onassis.
He named this monster tanker after his wife. His daughter Christina broke the champagne, and his son Alexander pressed the button that sent her down the slipway.
Die Taufe des stählernen Giganten. Dann kam der große
His supertanker's tonnage broke records, and the way Onassis financed them broke new ground too.
He went to an oil company first and secured a contract for, let's say, 5 years. He then went and ordered a ship. The only thing he didn't bother to tell the oil company was that he didn't have the ship ready.
Banks would not lend much money at the time for shipping and tankers and so forth. And he convinced them, after much persuasion, that the proper thing to do was to finance not the ship but the contract.